Hey everybody, so today we're going to do a review of the 911. We did the unboxing just a couple days ago. I did go to the range and I put it through its paces, fired I think maybe a total of 400 rounds out of it. About 50 rounds of that is self-defense ammo and the rest of it is all just range ammo. I'm going to give you what I found so far, things I liked, things that I didn't like, talk about reliability and things like that too, and whether or not I'm going to use this as my carry gun. First thing is, if you're not familiar with it, this is the Springfield Armory 911 and this one's in the Black Nitride finish. They came out with the stainless slide one first, but I kind of like the Black Nitride one more. Not only do I typically don't get a lot of stainless or the shiny guns or whatever, but also the color scheme that they chose to go with this grip is actually very similar to my favorite handgun, which is my Springfield Operator, which has the same color scheme right there on the grip. It's probably the same exact line of grip actually, because it's pretty much identical. Yeah, it looks like the same kind of grips made by VZ Grips. It's a G10 material. It doesn't feel rubbery at all. It kind of feels almost like a wood, but like a rough wood, but not in the way that it's overly aggressive, that it hurts your hands or anything like that. This is kind of comparable to something like a SIG P238 or a Colt Mustang or a Kimber Micro. They're all kind of based around the same concept. I think the Colt Mustang came out first, but they did make a few changes and I'm just going to go over some of those here. First one is they did add a tactile loaded chamber indicator, so that actually pops up when it's loaded, so you can actually just run your finger over it and you can feel that it's loaded. This does come standard with textured front strap and the back, which is not really a change, but a lot of these other ones, that's kind of like an upgrade and you have to pay extra for that, but that comes standard in this. Another thing that changed is that the extractor is on the outside, and I think the main reason why they did that, I don't think there's any kind of a reliability or performance reason, is because they wanted to give this gun a little bit more of a streamlined profile, which this is also a change from the standard one. Kind of tapers on the way the slide is cut versus the other ones are more squarish. By tapering it, you don't really have that room anymore for the internal extractor, so they have the extractor on the outside instead, which, I mean, either way it's fine. I don't really mind it either way, and I do like this tapered profile. It's actually makes it look very nice and makes it look even sleeker than the other ones. That's very nice. Mechanically speaking though, pretty much most of it is the same. A lot of people compare this to a 1911, which it is very similar to it. They have the same grip angle, and a lot of these cuts are the same as the 1911. The cut going into the trigger, to kind of guide your finger. The undercutting here is really nice in this gun. It cuts up pretty high. The mag release is pretty much identical to it, and the trigger kind of looks like it as well, but it is different. This is actually a hinged trigger, which a lot of people don't realize, and all of them are. I'm not talking about just the Springfield 911, 238, the Mustang. They're all hinged. You can see the hinge pin right there, and then you see, if you watch the trigger closely, you see that the top of it doesn't really move, only the bottom does. Standard 1911, the trigger moves straight back. You see, it's not a hinge trigger. It actually goes straight back. The way it disengages the hammer, there's actually two metal tangs that kind of wrap around so that the magazine can go in. Obviously it doesn't go straight through the middle. It has a tang that goes all the way around, and the back of it makes contact with the mechanisms to release the hammer. On this one, instead of having a tang that wraps around, it's a tang on one side and it's hinged in the back of the trigger as well, so it goes back and then hooks back, and then that interacts with that. So it's a little different. It does make it so that it's not quite as good as the 1911 trigger. The 1911 trigger that pulls straight back is probably one of those triggers that, unless you make another one exactly like it, you can't really compete with it. Of course, I'm not saying that it's like the perfect gun. There's a lot of things that some people consider drawbacks to the 1911 design, but the trigger is definitely not one of them. But besides that, even though it's a hinge trigger, it is still a really nice trigger. It's very little take up and over travel, and the reset's very short. So the take up is basically just that. And then there's the brake, and then the reset is just basically those couple millimeters, and that's it. So it's still a really nice trigger. I do want to bring this in to get the trigger lightened up a little bit more. It's advertised at 5 pounds. I'll have it tested to see if it's at 5. It feels to me like maybe around 5.5-ish. I would actually want to get it decreased to more like 4. Compared to its competitors, like the SIG 238 and the Kimber Micro, is actually a bit of an improvement, because those usually rate in around maybe 5 to 6, or sometimes even more. So that's very nice. From my impressions of shooting it, the recoil is super controllable. I'm going to post some video clip examples of that, of me shooting it and also shooting one-handed. From these clips, I'm sure you see that it's very controllable, even from shooting fairly quickly. I'm not really mag dumping it, but shooting maybe a shot every 3/4 of a second or so. It's definitely effective in a gunfight. All of that would keep the groups on target, even though not really aiming. I'm just kind of pointing and shooting, but there's really not much muzzle rise on it. The gun itself feels very good in the hands. does feel like a little mini 1911. Obviously not quite as good, but it is very nice and small and very compact, very lightweight. So it is something that I can shoot for long periods and not really get tired because it's doesn't really weigh anything. The sights on this thing is actually really nice. It has night sights, front and rear, in a 3-dot configuration, and the front sight post, they put like a little luminescent ring around it. It is yellow the way it comes. My one area of improvement would be to make that like an orange or a red color, because I think that would stand out a lot more than the yellow does. With proper lighting, it stands out a lot. You know, if you're shooting an outdoor range or something like that, it does stand out and it's very nice. But once you're shooting like an indoor range, something where the lighting is just dim enough to where you start to notice the glow of the tritium, but not so dim that it becomes like low light shooting. Right in that middle area, that yellow does kind of blend in with the glow of the tritium. If they would have made that orange or red, that wouldn't be the case. So that's the one place that I would improve on it. Visually, the slide serrations, the way they have it here, it's a very nice looking gun. I kind of like the visual cues on it. It looks classic and professional, but also modern and kind of high tech in a way, and it's aggressive without being too try-hardy, you know. I don't know how to put it, but it's kind of a good balance. It looks like a professional enough gun without looking too tactically, you know, like somebody's trying way too hard, but it does kind of look more upgraded than a standard cheap pistol. The price range on these guns are not too bad. Obviously, you can get an LCP much cheaper, but that's a plastic gun. This does have an aluminum alloy frame. Everything is very high quality in it. The slide is stainless, and so is the barrel with the black nitride finish. It's very, you know, resistant to corrosion, things like that. Although I just got it, so I can't tell you for sure if this finish will hold up over time, but I've had nothing but good experiences with Springfield handguns, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. In terms of reliability, I did used to work for a gun range, and one pattern that I did notice was that small guns tend to be a little bit more finicky. They tend to have a little bit more reliability issues, and maybe some of them would just be a little bit more picky with ammo. So that was the one thing that I was kind of concerned about this. It is actually true. However, the self-defense ammo that I've chosen to use based on the Lucky Gunner data I've read on, you know, their test on how well self-defense ammo works is the Hornady Critical Defense. Now, before you go out and buy Hornady Critical Defense for your gun or for any gun that you own, look at that data, because the results are not the same between all of the calibers. The Hornady Critical Defense tended to perform, in my opinion, kind of the best all-around for the 380. For the 45, for example, it was actually the Federal HSTs. So I have Federal HSTs for my 45s, but for the 380 I got the Critical Defense. In this gun, the Critical Defense Hornady that I've shot 50 rounds through it, and through different magazines, and didn't have a single malfunction. So at least I know that even though this gun is a little bit picky with ammo, it's not picky with this one, which is the important one. So that's good to go. Now, what have I found with it in terms of how picky it is with ammo? Well, I shot maybe 100 or so rounds of just mixed ammo, things that I just found off the floor when I used to work at the range. So I don't know what is between all different brands and all different kinds of ammo. I'm guessing it's probably gonna be like between Cellular and Bellet, Winchester, Remington, Magtech, things like that. It seemed to run fine with all of those, except the flat nose ones. There were some flat nose ones that I picked up. I forgot to look at what brand it was. I think they're Magtech, because Magtech tends to do a lot of flat nose ammo. So I think they're Magtech ammo. That ammo seemed to jam in this gun quite often. So I would say stay away from any of the flat nose rounds. And then today I shot another 250 rounds out of it. It was the UMC Remington ammo I bought from Walmart. Very affordable ammo. With that ammo, strangely, I don't know why it does this, because it seems ammo related, but then it was only certain positions in a magazine, which is kind of weird for me. The first round, if you load the magazine complete, that first round when you put it in the gun and you pull the slide back and let it go, it won't load fully. It would kind of stop, like with that much of the brass showing. So you'll have to kind of tap it and then it'll go into battery. And it's only if you load the magazine fully and you're loading that first round. If you only load, let's say, like 3 or 4 rounds into this magazine, it'll load fine. And same thing with shooting, you know, it shoots through the whole magazine fine until the very last round. Once it gets to the last round, it does the same thing. So you'll be shooting your 6 rounds, and then after the 6th round, you try to press the trigger to shoot again, and it won't go. You look and you see that it's just in the same state, like this. So the first and the last round with the UMC ammo, for some reason, the first and the last round, and I would say in half the times I was shooting, and I've made sure it wasn't only in certain magazines. I've changed magazines to see if it would do it with other ones, and it does. It did it with all of them. So for some reason, the UMC Remington ammo would jam up the first and the last round only. I'm not really that concerned because, like I said, the self-defense ammo runs flawlessly through it, which is the really important one. but I would still like my gun to be able to run most of all ammo. You know, I'm used to most of my other guns. Like this, for instance, I can put anything in it and it'll run it. So I'm going to contact Springfield. They have probably the best customer service, so I'm not really concerned. So I'm going to contact them to see if there's anything they can do to make it so that it runs reliably even with finicky ammo like that. So I would think maybe like a slightly heavier recoil spring would fix that issue, or maybe polishing the back face of the, you know, where the casing rides up to go into place. A lot of 1911 guys kind of got into their minds that polishing the feed ramp and throating the chamber is what would make it reliable, but a lot of times people neglect this back face here, and that back face is actually very important because the back of the casing, when it's going into the chamber, actually rides up that front face of the slide. So if that's not completely smooth, or if there's any kind of burrs on there, or if there's any kind of thing that would prevent that from smoothly riding up, it will cause it to jam as well. And the reason why I think that that's more likely an issue with this gun than, you know, polishing the feed ramp is that with the magazine inserted into there, it's an empty magazine. When there's rounds, you would notice that the round is pretty much right behind the chamber. There's not really too much that it needs to climb up the feed ramp anyway. It pretty much goes almost straight in. So I really don't think that's the issue. I think it's more it's catching back here, or that the recoil spring is just not strong enough, one or the other. So I'll let them test it out and find out what the issue is, because they're, you know, they're the professionals. But besides that, it shoots very accurately. I noticed that I'm making very good groups, even though for some reason I couldn't get myself to shoot slowly on this thing. I kind of just wanted to keep cranking out the rounds. just something about how it handles. It just handles so nice, and the recoil is so light that, like, I don't know, I just couldn't convince myself to slow my shots down. Once I got one out, I wanted to get the next one out. So all the groupings that I'm going to be showing you are actually done, you know, shooting fairly quickly. I think if I would slow myself down and try to just do well aimed shots one after the other, probably could get much better groups. But for shooting fairly rapidly, it still groups really, really well. Because like I said, it just shoots so nice. Very low muzzle flip, very low recoil. Even shooting one-handed, I can keep it combat effective. You're not really going to get many flyers on this thing as long as you train with it. The other things I really like about it, like I mentioned before, the texturing on the front strap is actually really nice. It feels really nice. It looks really nice. It's like an actual specific pattern instead of just being checkering like a lot of other ones. So it's not too aggressive. Like, it doesn't start eating into your hand after, you know, shooting 250 rounds like I did today. But at the same time, you never feel like it's slippery. Like, it might slip out of your hands. I've shot some P238s that was smooth here, and yeah, it kind of felt like, you know, it wanted to walk in your hand a little bit. Just once you have it gripped in there, it's gripped in there, so it's pretty nice. The other complaint I do have on it, which I guess is not really like a fault of the gun, it's just kind of one of the downsides of shooting a small gun, is when you go to reload, because of how small this grip is, even though that my hands are small, like, the grip is small enough to where you see how the magazine is still where my hand is. On a full-size gun, it's well beyond, so when you press the mag release, it falls clean out. While on this one, since my hand is still there, a lot of times when I go to release it, it does that. Then, you know, I either have to strip it manually, or I have to move my hand out of the way and press the button again for it to go. That happens to me, I would say maybe like 1 out of 3 reloads that would happen. Most of the time, you know, I can get it to release on its own, but every now and then it will get caught in my palm. So I guess it's just the little differences in how I'm handling it when I'm doing my reloads. That's nothing specific to this gun. I'm not going to say like, oh, if I pick up a P238 or a Colt Mustang, that problem's going to go away. That's just kind of a consequence of shooting a small gun like this. Now, this from Springfield comes with like a little notebook case, and the way it comes, it actually has the pocket holster attached on here, and that's kind of how the gun goes in there. So that's kind of a cool feature. You know, you just take this off the Velcro and you have yourself a little pocket holster. Right out of the box, you can start using this gun. I mean, I'm not saying to not go out and find a good holster for it. You know, obviously there's going to be other choices, but it's still nice for it to come with a nice basic pocket holster. And, you know, I've been using it. There's nothing wrong with it. It also comes with 2 magazines. It comes with one 7-round magazine and a one flush fit 6-round magazine. I pretty much never use this. I used this and I bought 2 other 7-round magazines as well. You know, not only do you get the extra capacity, but you also get the extra grip, so you have someplace to put your pinky. You know, that feels super nice. And even though it adds that little bit of length, that doesn't make it any bulkier. This fits right in my pocket and disappears just like it does with that in there. So definitely invest in more of these magazines, which, by the way, if you look at the prices of these magazines for the other ones like the Kimber and the SIG P238, with the SIGs they're around $45 to $50, typically how much you find it for. For these Springfield ones, $25. Definitely go for the Springfield ones. They have metal followers. They seem like they're just as good quality as the SIG. I don't know, some people will say the SIG is nicer quality, but I haven't really seen a difference between them. And another feature that comes standard with this, that doesn't come standard with a lot of the other ones, is the ambidextrous safety here. You see it on both sides. It's not a big deal for me because I'm a right-handed shooter, but I do practice shooting offhand a lot, so that's definitely useful for that. Some of the other ones you have to pay extra for it. And this trigger has kind of a weird texture to it. Some people think it's like carbon fiber, but it's actually G10. It's the same material as grip. They did that mainly to save weight. It's cheaper than having a metal trigger, and it's just as rigid. It's a nice little feature. I mean, it's just more aesthetics, really, in my opinion. Not a huge plus and not a con either. That's just something that's a little bit different between this and the other ones. And speaking of the grips, the G10 grips that it comes with, like I said, I think it's made by VZ Grips. As you can see the similarity, I bought this from the VZ Grips website, so I mean, you be the judge. I think it's from the same exact company. They are an OEM for a lot of gun companies, so I do think that they provide these, which is not a bad thing. VZ Grips pretty much make the best grip panels you can buy for 1911s, and I guess now the 911s too. And this color combination, as you can see, it's something that I really like. It's kind of like a green and black, and then the gun itself is black, so it just kind of goes together really nice. And the feel, like I mentioned before, it provides enough grippiness without being too aggressive. So yeah, overall, I mean, I really do like this gun, and despite some of the reliability issues that I've ran into with certain ammo, I would say that since it runs the self-defense ammo that I'm going to be using perfectly, I'm definitely going to be using this as one of my carry guns, mainly for the times where I can't get away with carrying like a full-size 1911 or anything like that. I'll just go with this. Before I had the Springfield XDS in 45 for that. Before you tell me that, oh, you could have just gone with 9mm, yeah, it's true, but I was just kind of trying to be lazy in terms of buying ammo, and I just kind of got everything in 45. But yeah, if you ask my opinion on what is best, if you're thinking about getting like XDS or something small like that, 9mm, go with 9mm. But yeah, so I had the XDS in 45, which it's a good gun. I do like it, but yeah, in 45 the recoil is quite stout in that little gun. So this is definitely, I think, will be easier to control. I think it'll be more effective if I have to use it. But yeah, definitely I'm satisfied with it. I think maybe a little while ago I might not have considered getting a 380, but been doing a lot of reading and a lot of research and find that when it comes to the so-called stopping power, basically how effective a round is at stopping an attacker, pretty much all the studies show that anything from 380 and above are about the same. You get about the same effectiveness between all the calibers. I think the difference between the highest and the lowest is like a few percentage points. So, it's really negligible. The only time that it starts to really drop off is when you go below 380, like a 32, 25, 22. Those calibers, yeah, those have been shown to be very ineffective. So yeah, don't get those. I mean, you can get 380s, and even 9mm now so small that there's really no purpose to those smaller calibers for self-defense. Back in the day, yeah, maybe like they weren't able to make guns small enough that can handle the power of these calibers, but nowadays even these small plastic pistols can handle the 380 and above. The SIG P365 shoots 9mm and it's about this size. That has had its fair share of problems though, because it is a brand new platform, so I would give that maybe another year before I would start buying that gun too. There's definitely no purpose in going below a 380, but I think a 380 is enough in terms of self-defense. Any gun that you have on you is better than the gun that you don't have on you, so you don't feel comfortable enough carrying this because of the way you dress, or you don't have a good enough holster. I have holsters that can hide this, surprisingly. It's a big gun, especially after shooting this feels like a Desert Eagle. Yes, I could still carry that, but not for all occasions. Depending on how I'm dressed, sometimes I won't be able to get away with that, so instead of being armed with nothing, I'll just bring this with me. I mean, this thing is like, it weighs nothing. I can put this in my pocket of dress pants and it's probably not going to show. That's my review of the Springfield Armory 911. It's got a pass from me. I am going to speak to them about the issues I'm having with the range ammo, but like I said, this thing for me runs perfectly fine with the self-defense ammo. Brings me to another point. A lot of people in the gun stores, including the gun store I work for, the way that they tell you about what ammo to buy, they will say, oh, buy a box of self-defense ammo and never shoot it, then buy the range ammo, shoot that. I mean, that's not completely wrong. The self-defense ammo costs a lot of money, but I would definitely recommend whatever self-defense ammo you're thinking about using, buy a box of that, buy 2 boxes of range ammo, shoot the range ammo just to kind of give the gun it's a very small little break-in period, but it's better than nothing, and shoot through that entire box of self-defense ammo to make sure that the gun likes that ammo and that it runs through it flawlessly. And I'm not just talking about this gun, I'm talking about any new gun that you buy, or any time you want to change self-defense ammo. Like let's say you've been using one type for a long time and then you kind of decide based on things you read or based on something one of your friends told you, you want to change to a different type of self-defense ammo. Always shoot a box through it to make sure that it runs through the gun fine. If you can get through an entire box of it flawlessly without any issues, then I would say you can feel fairly confident that it will run fine in that particular gun. And it's different from gun to gun, so I know it costs more money, but how much is your life worth? I hope you enjoyed this review, found it informative. Definitely, if you have any comments, anything you want to ask or you want to add to this, you can do so in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I'll be adding more reviews and how-tos and tips and tricks and unboxings and things like that, and not just of guns. That's definitely one of the things I will cover. And if you have any recommendations or maybe certain things that you want me to review or comment on, if it's something I have access to or something I already have, I'll definitely make a video on it. So leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.